Welcome everyone to this the Salto demo webinar, whatever you want to call it. I'm Dan Putman. I'm a customer engineer. Today, I'm going to be taking you through Salto, kind of showing you some of the typical use cases, the value we try and bring to the NetSuite platform. And we're going to keep it really conversational. I'm going to go through Salto and some of those typical use cases. And then I really want to open it up to the floor. You know, this isn't meant to be a sales pitch or where we're gonna, you know, PowerPoint you to death. I really want to get some questions, answer some pertinent questions for you guys, and see if we can help improve your lives. And so with that, you'll see I've got a co-panelist here, Eric. He's with our team. He helped set up the webinar, and he'll actually be watching the questions, the Q&A section for me. So if I miss anything, if I miss a raised hand, he's going to chime in and let me know. But yeah, are there any questions before we get going? If so, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll talk. No, looks good. In that case, I'll dive right in with the kind of the base cases for Salto, how we do comparison and deployment, some of the typical things you can do above and beyond what is available in NetSuite today. And yeah, should take us about 10, 12 minutes, and then we'll dive a little deeper into things. So without further ado, I'll share my screen and we'll get going. All right. So you should see Salto here. Now, Salto integrates with NetSuite via some tokens and the API. So we go ahead, we fetch all the typical data, the customizations that you're already building today in NetSuite. So if you are in NetSuite, you know, building scripts, building saved searches, workflows, all those things are going to get fetched in. So with that, you can see here, I've got two environments, Demo 1 and Demo 2. I'm going to look at Demo 1. So if I pop open the records here, you can see that I have fetched in, you know, all these types like my PDF templates. I've got saved searches, imports, my fields, my workflows. All that data is available for us to look at in Salto. And in this use case, in the Explore tab, what we really try and bring to the table is an easy way to look at the impact of your changes before you make them. So you're really looking at these complex configs and environments that get set up over time. How are they interconnected? If I make a change here, what's it going to affect? What dependencies are relying on each other? Things like that. So I always start here with a workflow, so I can actually filter down to just my DP workflows. I got a little prefix on these. I like to look at Demo 1 for this instance. So here you'll see a lot of the fields and attributes you're familiar with when you're looking at like a workflow. It's going to look the same for any type of object, just different structures, but the same kind of view. If I want to stay here, I can see states, I can see the actions, entry conditions. So I'm using a save search here for entry into this action or condition for entry. And if I like this view, I can look through everything here. If I want to, for the development types out there, I'd like to look at config files. We also have the raw config behind the scenes. So this is the NOCL file. It's a format that we convert all of our business apps to. So obviously you might be familiar with the XML that underpins NetSuite. We convert it into this NOCL format because we find it much more readable, much easier to edit down the line in some of our other views. If you wanted to change something on the fly, do find and replace, bulk changes, things like that, this tends to be much easier to do it with than an XML structure. So I'm going to go ahead and close that for now. I like to show it because you know it's there. But the big thing we are attempting to do in the Explore view is look at these relationships. So down here, you'll notice that I have a dependency area that shows me I'm using a custom field and a saved search within this workflow. And let's say I wanted to change the conditions on the saved search to affect how my workflow fires. Well, I can click on that saved search, hop right to it, which is difficult to do in the NetSuite UI. I can see what's going on. I can see the filters that I've got here in the saved search. And then once I figured out what change I want to make, the most important thing is, okay, what else am I going to affect down the line? So if I wanted to remove one of these filters, I could come down and look and see who else is using this work or this save search. So not just my workflow, but what's that relationship in the other direction? Who's using me? In this case, it's not just DP demo 1, it's also DP custom workflow. And whether it's one dependency or one relationship or 100, we're going to show all these here. So you can start to get a full picture of what's going on with all these relationships. So I'll pause for a moment. Are there any questions from the attendees about this view, or about what you were trying to accomplish here? Okay. So one other thing I like to point out is that is typically a massive pain for developers, people that are scripting a lot, is the relationships between these custom objects that say a save search, for instance, and the scripts themselves. So if I want to load a save search, fire it within a script and deal with the output, that would be difficult to, if I wanted to know what relationships there were, what scripts were using which searches, that would be difficult. Typically in NetSuite, I need to go through, write it down, maybe do screenshots. But in Salto, because we have the ability to look at these scripts, I can actually look at a script and see which dependencies it has, because we're parsing those scripts and relating it back to the actual elements in the rest of NetSuite, the rest of the configurations. So you see here, I've got a save search that we've detected is being used within this search demo.js file. I can click on that, hop right to it. This is a different one. I can open up and see what's going on here. And vice versa, let's say I was in my searches trying to decide, can I delete this search? Who uses it? It's also referenced down here. So I can see, oh, I've got a file, I've got a Suite script that's referencing the save search, and so on and so forth. Whether any type of reference, any type of script ID, be it a field or a save search, whatnot, we're going to detect and show here. So it saves you a lot of time, a lot of headaches. If you're deploying scripts and things are breaking because you forgot dependencies, we solve a lot of that. Pause for a moment. And great. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Again, any questions or anything, raise your hand. And then at the end, we'll pause for broader questions as well. Okay. So that's how we think about our changes before we make them. But when we're actually wanting to move these changes, right now we've got a couple of options within NetSuite. You've got, we're going to ignore bundles because bundles are being deprecated, but you basically have copy to account, which works for some things, not others, can be difficult, and most people just can't get it to quite work right. We've got just manually moving the changes, which no one wants to do. No one wants to open two screens and click and type between them. It just takes a lot of time, error prone. And then we've got SDF, which is development heavy. You got to know what you're doing. Has a lot of power, but again, it's hit and miss and requires you to open a terminal, do things like that, or your a terminal or your IDE. So we think we can do better with the Salto compare and deploy view. So what we can do here, if I do a compare and deploy, and let's say I want to take that workflow from demo 1 to demo 2, I can do that. Pop that in there. So what I get when I ask Salto to do a compare and deploy is the first thing is we cut out all the noise. We compare the configs and the file sets from both these environments, and we narrow it down to just the modifications, just the things that have changed between these two environments. In this case, I've got 291. I can see custom records, Suite scripts, templates, everything we can find, we're going to display here as long as it's different between the environments. If I go down to my workflows again, I can actually do some exploration. So even if I'm not wanting to do a deployment, I can still get a sense of what's different between these two environments. In this case, I can see I've got additions, so things that are in demo 1, but not in demo 2. So this would be a promotion and add to demo 2. Things that are in demo 2, but not in demo 1. So if I wanted to align the environments in this direction, I'd remove it from demo 2. And then things that are modified between the two. So it exists in both, but I've changed an attribute, or in this case, I believe I've added a workflow state. Yep, I added a workflow action to this workflow, DP email test. So I can get a sense real quickly of what's going on, what I've changed and whatnot. 1 second. Misha, thank you. Demo 1 and Demo 2, yeah, in this case, I'm using it as a sandbox versus production environment. However, they are, we can go between any two environments. So sandbox to sandbox, production to back to sandbox, sandbox to production. Doesn't matter to us because it's all purely logical in a config comparison. So you have a lot of flexibility in which accounts you want to move between in NetSuite. Cool. Perfect. And obviously, if I don't get your question quite right, please follow up, and I'm happy to elaborate. So from there, so I've looked at those workflows. Actually, open that back up. So I've looked at these workflows. I got a sense of what's different between the two environments. But here, I know what I want to send. I want to send DP demo 1. And you notice when I grab that, a few things have changed. I've selected it. We notify here and up here that I have a missing dependency. So I could click here, but I'll actually just open up the whole tab so we can see more information. It's that safe search that I was looking at earlier that I saw when I was doing my exploration. It doesn't exist on demo 2, and Salto shows us that and shows that it's a required dependency. It needs to be brought along in order for this workflow to function. So I'll grab that. Salto is checking for any second, third, fourth level dependencies. So if my safe search had additional dependencies on fields or whatever, those will be picked up in case I need to bring those. I don't have anything in this instance, so we're good to go. I can be confident I've got everything. And then we also are going to show off any of the other relationships that we may want to explore and bring along in this case. Not required, but as an admin, you may or may not want to bring these attributes. In this case, my custom field is in my target environment, but it's changed. So I've changed some attributes about it. I can decide, look at it. Do I want to bring this? Do I want to change this on demo 2 or not? In this case, no, so I'll leave it. And then we also show things that are referencing the objects we've already grabbed. So in this case, this custom workflow that we saw earlier references the search I'm going to deploy. So we say, maybe you're intending to deploy this as well. It's not required, but we make it visible, kind of the cost or a benefit, and just a nice benefit to have, makes it easier to see and select if we want it in our deployment. So I'm good. I've got the two elements I want to send in this deployment, my save search and my workflow. So I'm going to preview. And this is going to take care of doing all of the validations to make sure I've got a good deployment package that I can send it and be confident it's going to work in the next environment. Also, in that previous view, on the table view, I could actually be collaborating with my peers at that point. So we could both be working on the same deployment in two different screens, adding things, removing things. And then as soon as I click preview, we lock that deployment and do the validation. So now I can't change anything. I'm just in a review state. At this point, you'll see I've got 2 to be added right here. Great. Nothing is skipped. So I can be confident that if I did have anything that was going to be skipped, I'm going to get an error, tell me why it's being skipped, what's wrong, and how to go fix it. But here, it seems like we're green. So I can click this deploy button and send it with high confidence. Also note, I can only deploy because I have credentials to do so. I have permission to do so on demo 2. If I did not, Salto would gray this out, and I need to go ask an admin with the proper permissions to deploy it for me. So that's all based on tokens that are requested from the user the first time they try to deploy. So I'll go ahead and deploy. And now we're hitting the SDF endpoint. We're hitting actually a custom suite app that we have built to add some functionality on top of SDF. So even if you're using SDF today, Salto brings more to the table, like additional attributes, additional types, and the ability to delete certain elements if you want to. So right now, SDF doesn't delete it all. Salto can delete some things, and we have that listed on our website. Perfect. So I got 2 elements deployed, just like I had expected. I got my save search and my workflow. Both went to the to my demo 2 environment. Okay. I've now validated that, and I can push these configs into a version in Git. So essentially, I've gone ahead, done my deployment, and now I want to create some documentation and a history of what I've done, just in case I need to revert anything later. I want to be able to attach it, say, to a ticket. If you're using Jira or some type of ticketing system, this is really useful for attaching the work to the ticket that authorizes the work. So let's see what that looks like. I've got my configs over here, the raw configs. Great, we pre-selected them out of all the other changes that we have in these 2 systems. I've got demo 1 and demo 1 going to demo 2. In my message, I've got Dan Putman, he's the guy that did it. And then a link back to Salto, in case you ever want to, you're in Git, want to link back and see what Salto has for the deployment history. And like I said, I can go ahead and grab a ticket ID. In this case, I'm using Jira, but any system that has a Git integration is going to work here. I'm going to pop that in. So I got my ticket ID, my message, everything, hit push. So with 2 button clicks, I am now committing a version of what I've deployed into my history. And I can go look at my ticket here. So you got a ticket with a number of commits from all my demos. I've now got 15 commits, including the one at the top less than a minute ago. I've got a history of the files I sent. I've got my message here, a link to Git. So your developers, if you're not familiar with Git, I bet your development team is. And I have the files right here in case I ever need to go revert them or look at what I did, and a link back to Salto, completing the full loop of these systems. So with all that said, this is really the meat of what Salto does. Obviously, we have a lot of additional functionality that we can always cover in depth and customize to your individual processes and what your company's trying to do. But the ability to get higher visibility into what your system is actually doing, and the ability to compare and move between 2 environments pretty seamlessly, especially compared to the built-in tools. This is what's going to make life a heck of a lot easier when you're living day to day in NetSuite. So, got another question from Misha. Let me ask you this. It's a good question, Misha. So Misha's asking, are all the commits linked to one Jira ticket, or does it create a new ticket for every commit? The structure of those tickets are entirely up to you. So you can either do a 1-to-1, so you can create a Jira for every Jira ticket you create. You can do a deployment for that ticket. You could do multiple deployments for 1 ticket, or you could actually have multiple tickets on 1 deploy. So it's all entirely up to how you want to tag it. And Salto doesn't generate the tickets; it just links to them. So that structure is really flexible and up to the end user. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I really appreciate your time, and yeah, have a good rest of your day.